students, welcome to my class. Today we are discussing about your first chapter on your first book on Bill. Your first chapter is The Portrait of a Lady, written by Kuswant Singh. The introduction of the chapter. The Portrait of a Lady is a story of the author. He describes his relationship with his grandmother. Over the years, he pens down her daily activities and how she evolved as a character as time passed by. He explained her appearance, which helps create an image in the reader's mind. Okay, this is the little bit introduction about your chapter, and then we are discussing your chapter paragraph by paragraph explanation. Your first paragraph. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for 20 years that I had known her. A wrinkle means having lines or folds in her face. Yeah, having creases in her face. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband, but that was hard to believe. Hard to hard to believe by grandfather portrait. Portrait means painting or pictures hung above the mantelpiece. Mantelpiece means a structure of wood, marble, or stone above or around a fireplace. In the drawing room, he wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long, white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother, being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. Thought was almost revolting means it was very hard for the author to believe that. She often told us of the games she used to the play as a child that seemed quite absurd. Absurd means quite illogical, and undignified means disrespectful on her part, and we treated it like the fables, like the tales of the saints she used to tell us. Okay, this is your first paragraph and the introduction, and then the explanation of this paragraph. The author talks about his grandmother. He has known her for the past 20 years, and she had always been old and wrinkled, full of creases in her face. He was told that she was once young and pretty and had a husband. His grandmother's portrait hung on the wall, grandfather's portrait hung on the wall, in which he wore loose fitting clothes, a turban, a hat, a long white color beard that raised his chest, and he also appeared very old, and the author thought that he was someone who could have many grandchildren but not a wife or children. The author could never imagine that once his grandmother was young and pretty. He could not connect to this idea. She used to tell him and his cousin about her childhood memories, like the games she used to play as a child. They found these stories illogical and disrespectful because it was beyond their imaginations to think that grandmother was once a child and played such games. They thought that her life story were like the other moral stories which she used to tell them. Okay, This is the explanation of your first paragraph, and then your next paragraph. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was crisscross of wrinkles, a pattern of intersecting straight lines running from everywhere to everywhere. Now we were certain she had always been as we had known her. Old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. She hobbled about the house in spotless white with one hand resting her on her waist to balance a stoop and the other telling the beads of her rosary. Hobbled means walked in an awkward way, and her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, spotless white means she wore clean, white colored dresses, and stoop means bent one's body forward, and rosary means a string of beads. For keeping count of number of chants made of her religious wear, locks means hair, and scattered means disorganized way, and over her pale puckered face. Untidily means not clean. Puckered means face contracted into wrinkles, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Inaudible means unable to be heard. Yes, she was. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountain or an expanse of pure white serenity breathing peace and contentment. Serenity means state of being peaceful and calm. An expanse of pure white serenity means refers to the calm, relaxed and peaceful character of author's grandmothers. Contentment means a state of happiness and satisfactions. Okay. Explanation of this paragraph. His grandmother was short, fat, slightly bent in postures, and her face had lots of wrinkles. She seemed so old, and she had been the same for the past 20 years. According to the author, she was beautiful but not pretty. She walked around the house in an awkward way, wearing spotless white clothes with beads of rosary hanging from one hand, and the other hand rested on her bag for sport. She had silver colored hair, which was not neatly combed and was disorganized. She was constantly chanting prayers. He compares her to the winter landscape in in the mountains, which has a peaceful and calm feel. She was a live example of a pure white face emitting entirety. Okay, student, this is today's lectures, and goodbye for tomorrow, for next lecture.